Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight here on The Magical Solution. We are live on YouTube. We are live in my private Facebook group, The Magical Solution. This is how we grow. And we are live here on TikTok. So real quick disclaimer, those of you who are on my private Facebook group, if you want to leave a comment in the chat, just make sure that you leave a name or you leave some kind of identifier so I know who you are, because it just shows up as a Facebook user. Everyone else, you guys can leave your comments as you go, and I'll make sure to address them as best as I can. So we are picking up where we left off from last week, the Spirit Book by Allan Kardec. We are now on chapter 17, which is the intervention of spirits in the corporal world. So the subjects that we are going to be talking about, which are so fascinating, I know I ran over them last week, but I want to go through them again. They're awesome. The reading of our thoughts by spirits, the concealed influence of spirits on our thoughts and actions, the possessed, convulsionaries, the affection of spirits for certain individuals, guardian angels, protector, familiar, or sympathetic spirits, presentiments, the influence of spirits on the events of life, the action of spirits on the phenomenon of nature, spirits during battle, pacts, occult power, talismans, and sorcerers, and blessings and curses. I'm so excited. So let's get to it. So we are on the reading of our thoughts by spirits. Let's do it. Question 456. Can spirits see everything that we do? They can, because you are constantly surrounded by them. Nonetheless, they see only those things to which they direct their attention. They are not concerned about things that do not interest them. 457. Can spirits know our most secret thoughts? They often know about what you would like to conceal even from yourselves. Neither actions nor thoughts can be concealed from them. So would it seem easier to conceal something from a person while he or she is alive than to do so after he or she is dead? Certainly. And when you think you are well hidden, you will often have a crowd of spirits around you watching you. 458. What do the spirits who surround and observe us think about us? Well, that depends. Frivolous spirits laugh at the very little annoyances that they cause you, and they scoff at your impatience. Whereas serious spirits, on the other hand, pity your imperfections and try to help you. We are now on the subject of the concealed influence of spirits on our thoughts and actions. 459. Do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and our actions? Their influence on you in this regard is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. Do we have our own thoughts plus others that are suggested to us? Your soul is a spirit who thinks by itself. Nevertheless, you must have noticed that many thoughts occur to you all the time or all at the same time with regards to the same subject, and that they frequently contradict one another. Well, they are always a combination of your own ideas and other spirits' ideas, and this is what renders you uncertain. You have several ideas within your mind battling it out with each other. So, how can we distinguish between our own thoughts and those that are suggested to us? When a thought is suggested to you, it is like a voice speaking to you. Your own thoughts are usually those that occur to you at first impulse. Actually, you should not concern yourself with such a distinction, and it is often more useful not to even know about it. You act more freely that way. If you make the right decision, you will act more willingly. If you make the wrong one, your responsibility will be greater. 462. Do individuals of intelligence and genius always draw their ideas from within themselves? Their ideas sometimes arise from their own spirit, but frequently they are suggested to them by other spirits who deem them capable of understanding them and worthy of transmitting them. When such individuals cannot find ideas within themselves, they appeal for inspiration. They are making an evocation without even suspecting it. If it were useful to us to be able to distinguish between our own thoughts and those suggested to us, God would have given us the means to do so, just as God has given us the means to distinguish between day and night. But when a matter seems vague, it must be so for our own good. 463. It is sometimes said that the first impulse is always the best. Is this correct? It can be good and bad, according to the nature of the incarnate spirit. It is always good for the one who listens to good inspirations. 464. How can we tell if a suggested thought comes from a good or a bad spirit? Study the matter. Good spirits give only good advice. It is your responsibility to make the distinction. 465. For what purpose do imperfect spirits induce us to wrongdoing? To make you suffer as they themselves do? Does it actually lessen their suffering? No, but they do so anyway out of envy at seeing beings that are happier than they are. What kind of suffering do they wish to inflict on us? Those that result from belonging to a lower order and from being far from God. 466. Why does God permit spirits to incite us into wrongdoing? Imperfect spirits are meant as instruments for testing the faith and consistency of individuals in the practice of the good. As a spirit, you must progress in the knowledge of the infinite. That is why you experience the trials of wrongdoing in order to arrive at the good. Our mission is to place you upon the right path. When bad influences act upon you, however, it is you yourself who call to them out of your desire for wrongdoing. Little evolved spirits come to help you in wrongdoing when you have the will to commit it. However, they cannot help you in it except when you actually desire to indulge in it. If you are inclined to murder, very well, there will be a swarm of spirits who will maintain that thought in your mind. However, there are also be others who will try to influence you for good, and this re-equalizes the balance, leaving you as a master of yourself. It is thus that God leaves to our conscience the choice of the course we must follow and the freedom to yield to either of the opposing influence acting on us. 467. Can people avoid the influence of spirits who incite them to do wrongdoing? Yes, because they only attach themselves to those who solicit them with their desires or attract them with their thoughts. 468. Do spirits whose influence is repelled by an individual's will finally give up on their attempts? What else could they do? When they have nothing to do, they leave. Nevertheless, they attentively watch for a favorable moment, as the cat attentively watches for the mouse. 469. By what means can we neutralize the influence of bad spirits? By doing good and placing all your trust in God. You repel their influence and you destroy the power they desire to have over you. Guard yourselves against listening to the suggestions of spirits who excite wrongful thoughts in your mind, those who incite discord, arouse in you all the base passions. Above all, distrust spirits who flatter your pride, for they are attacking you at your weakest point. That is why Jesus teaches you to say in the Lord's Prayer, Lord, do not let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. 470. Have the spirits who seek to lead us into wrongdoing and who thus put our moral firmness to test receive a mission to do this? And if it is in fact a mission for them to fulfill, will they be responsible for doing so? Spirits never receive a mission to practice wrongdoing. When they do wrongful deeds, it is by their own will, and they will have to suffer the consequences. God may let them test you, but never directly orders them to do so. It is your responsibility to repel them. 471. When we experience a sensation of anguish, of indefinable anxiety or inner satisfaction without a known cause, does it result solely from our physical disposition at that time? It is almost always the effect of communications you have with spirits without even suspecting it, or those you have had with them during sleep. 472. Are spirits who want to incite us to wrongdoing limited to taking advantage of the circumstances in which we find ourselves, or can they create such a circumstance? They may take advantage of circumstances, but frequently they cause it, pushing you without you being aware of it towards the object of your ambition. Thus, for example, a man finds a quantity of money by the road, and spirits have not placed the money there, but they may have instilled in the man the thought of going in that direction. Then they suggest that he keeps the money, while others suggest he return it to its rightful owner. The same process happens with all other temptations. We're now on the subject of the possessed. 473. Can a spirit temporarily take over the corporal envelope of a living person? In other words, can it enter an animate body and replace the spirit incarnated in it? A spirit does not enter a body as you enter a house. Instead, it associates with an incarnate spirit who has who has its same defects and qualities so that they can both act conjointly. Nevertheless, it is always the incarnate spirit who acts upon the matter enveloping it and according to its own wishes. A spirit cannot replace the one who is incarnate because the spirit is connected to the body until the time set for the end of its material existence. 474. If there is no such thing as possession per se, that is, the cohabitation of two spirits in the same body, may a spirit nonetheless find itself dependent on another spirit so that it sees itself subjugated or obsessed by it to such a degree that its own will is in some way paralyzed? Yes. And these are the truly possessed. You must understand, however, that this kind of domination never occurs without the participation of the one who suffers it, either through weakness or desires. Epileptics and insane individuals have often been taken as being possessed, but they are in need of a doctor rather than an exorcist. It is common acceptance the word possession presumes the existence of demons, a category of beings of depraved nature, and the cohabitation of one of these beings with the soul of an individual in his or her body. But since there are no demons in this sense, and since two spirits cannot simultaneously inhabit the same body, no one can be possessed according to the idea normally attached to the word. By the expression of possessed, one should only understand it to mean the absolute dependence of a soul in relation to the imperfect spirits who have subjugated it. Woo! I hope you guys got that. 475. Can these persons by themselves repel such bad spirits and free themselves from their domination? You can always rid yourself of any burden when you have a firm will. Those of you who don't know, I did an entire series about the will on my YouTube page. The will is the most, probably in my opinion, the most important ingredient that you need to have in order to practice spiritual communication, practice magic, all of it. You need a strong will, period, point blank. So the fact that it again reiterates that here, is all the more reason. 476. Couldn't it be the case that the obsession by a bad spirit is such that the subjugated person does not even perceive it? Couldn't a third person put an end to the subjugation? And in such a case, what role should he or she play? If the individual is morally upright, his or her willpower may help by appealing to the cooperation of good spirits, because the more moral a person is, the more power that person has regarding imperfect spirits in order to repel them, and regarding good ones in order to attract them. Nevertheless, this third person will be completely powerless if the one who is subjugated does not cooperate. After all, there are persons who take delight in this dependence that satisfies their taste and desires. In all cases, however, those who do not have a good and pure heart cannot have any influence whatsoever. Good spirits ignore them, and bad ones do not fear them. 477. Are exorcisms formulas at all effective against bad spirits? No. When these spirits see anyone who takes such formulas seriously, they laugh and persevere. 478. There are persons animated by good intentions, but who are obsessed nevertheless. What are the best means for them to free themselves from obsessing spirits? Tire their patience. Pay no attention to their suggestions and show them that they are wasting their time. Then, when they see they can do nothing, they will withdraw. 479. Is prayer an effective means for cursing obsession? Prayer is a powerful aid in everything, but you must realize that it is insufficient to simply mutter a few words to obtain what you desire. God helps those who act, not those who limit themselves merely to asking. Therefore, obsessed persons must do their part in order to destroy in themselves the cause that attracts bad spirits. I can't. 480. What should be the thought about the expulsion of demons spoken of in the gospel? Well, that depends on the interpretation. If you mean by demon a bad spirit who subjugates an individual, when its influence is destroyed, it will truly be expelled. If you attribute an illness to a demon, when you have cured the sickness, you will have expelled the demon. A thing may be true or false according to the meaning given to the words. The greatest truths may seem absurd when only the form is observed and when an allegory is taken for reality. Understand this well and try to remember it, because it is the universal application. Words. We are now on the subject of convulsionaries. 481. Do spirits play any role in the phenomenon produced among individuals called convulsionaries? Yes, a very large one, as does magnetism, its primary source. But charlatanism has frequently exploited and exaggerated this phenomenon, thereby making them appear to be ridiculous. In general, of what nature are the spirits who concur in these types of phenomenon? They are little evolved. Do you believe that evolved spirits would enjoy such things? 482. How can the abnormal state of convulsionaries and hysterical persons suddenly extend to an entire population? So he's talking about like mass hysteria, right? By sympathetic effect. Mental dispositions are communicated more easily in certain cases. You are not such a stranger to the effects of magnetisms that you cannot understand this fact, and the role certain spirits play in it through their sympathy with those who cause them. Among the bizarre faculties noted in convulsionaries, we easily recognize some of which, oh, here's that word again, somnambulism, and mesmerism offer numerous examples. Such are, among others, physical insensitivity, mind reading, empathic transmission of pain, etc. Thus, it cannot be doubted that such individuals in crisis are in a type of awakened somnambulistic state, caused by the influence they exert on one another. They are both magnetizers and magnetized at the same time without even realizing it. 483. What is the cause of the physical insensitivity displayed in certain convulsionaries and other individuals submitted to the most atrocious tortures? So this is likened to the witch trials, for example. Well, in some, it is exclusively magnetic effect, acting on the nervous system in the same manner as certain substances. In others, the exaltation of thought deadens the sensitivity because life seems to have withdrawn from the body in order to be transferred to the spirit. Don't you know that when the spirit is intensely concerned with something, the body does not feel, hear, or see? In cases of torture, fanatic exaltation and enthusiasm often offer an example of calmness and cool-bloodedness, in which acute pain could not have been overcome unless one were to accept the fact that sensitivity had been neutralized by some kind of anesthetic effect. We know that frequently, in the heat of combat, a grave wound is often not felt at all, whereas under normal circumstances, an ordinary scratch makes us quiver. Since these phenomena depend on physical cause and the action of certain spirits, one may ask how, in some cases, it rested on civil authorities to put a stop to them. The reason is simple. The action of spirit here is secondary. They do nothing more than take advantage of a natural disposition. The authorities did not suppress the disposition itself, but rather the cause that maintained and excited it, which then went from active to latent. They had reason to act this way because the event resulted in abuse and scandal. We know furthermore that such intervention is powerless when the action of spirits is direct and spontaneous. We are now on the subject of the affection of spirits for certain persons. 484. Do spirits affectionately prefer certain persons? Well, good spirits sympathize with moral individuals or those who are susceptible to improving themselves. Low order spirits with wicked individuals or those who may become such. Hence, their affection is the result of a similarity of sentiment. Woo! 485. Is the affection of spirits for certain persons exclusively moral? True affection has nothing carnal about it. But when a spirit attaches itself to a particular person, it is not always out of affection. A remembrance of human passions can have a hand in it. 486. Do persons take an interest in our misfortunes and prosperity? Sorry, do spirits take an interest in our misfortunes and prosperity? Are those who wish us well concerned about the afflictions we experience in life? Good spirits do all the good they can and feel happy for your joys. They are concerned about your afflictions when you do not bear them with resignation, because then they produce no good results for you. You carry on like patients who reject the bitter medicine meant to heal them. 487. What kind of afflictions cause spirits to be concerned about us most? Physical caused afflictions or morally caused afflictions? Your selfishness and hard heartedness. Everything else derives from these. They laugh at all of your imaginary ills born from pride and ambition, but they rejoice in those that will shorten the length of your trial. Knowing that corporal life is only transitory, and that the tribulations accompanying it are the means leading to a better state, spirits are more concerned about the moral causes that keep us from that state than the physical ills, which are only temporary. Spirits care little about misfortunes that only affect our mundane ideas, as we care little about the peril afflictions of childhood. Spirits who see in the afflictions of life a means for our advancement consider them as a momentary crisis that will restore us to health. They commiserate in our sufferings just as we commiserate in the sufferings of a friend, but seeing things from a more correct point of view, they regard them differently. While good spirits rebuild our courage for the sake of our future, others incite us to a desperation and try to jeopardize it. 488. Do our relatives and friends who have preceded us into the other life have more sympathy for us than the spirits who are strangers? Of course. And as spirits, they frequently protect you according to their abilities. Are they sensitive to our affections for them? Very sensitive. But they forget those who forget them. We are now on the subject of guardian angels, protectors, familiars, and sympathetic spirits. Woo, here we go. 489. Are there spirits who link themselves to a particular individual in order to protect them? Yes, spirit friends. What you call good spirits, or guardian spirits, or spirit guides. 490. What is a guardian angel? A protector spirit from a higher order. What is the mission of our protector spirits? The mission is that of a parent towards a child, to guide their wards along the path of the good, to help them with their counsels, to console them in their afflictions, and to sustain their courage in the trials of earthly life. Are protector spirits connected to particular individuals from birth? From birth to death. They frequently accompany them after death in the spirit life and even through numerous corporal existences, because these existences are no more than very short phases in the life of those spirits. 493. Is the mission of a protector spirit voluntary or obligatory? The spirit is obliged to watch over you because it has accepted the task. However, it is allowed to choose individuals who are attuned to it. For some, it is a pleasure, and for others, a mission or a duty. In linking itself to an individual, does the spirit refrain from protecting other individuals? No, but it does so less exclusively. 494. Is the protector spirit indissolubly connected to the person who has been entrusted into its care? Certain spirits often leave their position to carry out different assignments, but in such cases they are replaced. 495. Do protector spirits sometimes abandon their ward when the later is heedless of their warnings? So they're asking, do they stop protecting someone if after a while that person just doesn't listen to them? They withdraw when they see that their counsels are useless, and that the ward's will is set on submitting to the influence of little evolved spirits. They do not abandon them entirely, though, and always make themselves heard. Their wards are the ones who shut their ears. Their protectors return as soon as they are called. If there is a doctrine that should convert the most incredulous by its charm and sweetness, it is that of guardian angels. Isn't it a very consoling idea to know that you always have at your side beings who are more evolved than you, who are always there to counsel, sustain, and aid you in scaling the rugged mountain of the good, who are more reliable and devoted friends than the most intimate connections that may be contracted here on earth? These beings are there at God's orders. It was God who has placed them at your side. They are there out of love for God, and they fulfill a beautiful but laborious mission alongside you. Wherever you may be, your angel will be there with you. In prison, in the hospital, in dens of iniquity, in solitude, nothing separates you from that friend whom you cannot see, but from whom your soul nonetheless receives the gentle impulses and hears wise counsels. Why can't you understand this truth more fully? How many times it would help you in the moments of crisis, how many times it would save you from bad spirits. But on the great day of accounting, this angel of the good might have to say to you, didn't I offer you advice? Yet you did not follow it. Didn't I show you the abyss? Yet you fell into it. I made the voice of truth resound in your conscience, yet you followed the counsels of a lie instead. Question your guardian angels. Establish between yourselves and them that intimate tenderness that reigns between best friends. Do not think of hiding anything from them, for they are the eyes of God, and you cannot deceive them. Consider the future. Seek to progress in this life, and your trials will be shorter, and your lives will be happier. Come, take heart. Once and for all, avoid prejudices and ulterior motives. Enter upon the new pathway now opening before you. Forward, forward. You have guides and follow them. Your goal cannot fail you, for the goal is God. To those who think it impossible that truly high order spirits could devote themselves to such laborious tasks, and at all instants, will say that we can indeed influence your souls even though millions of miles may separate us. Space does not exist to us, and even while living on another world, our spirit retains a connection with you. We enjoy faculties that you cannot comprehend. However, you can be certain that God has not imposed a task on us that is above our strength, and that God has abandoned you alone on the earth without friends or support. All guardian angels have their wards, whom they watch over as parents watch over their children. They feel happy when they see them on the path of good, but mourn when their counsels are despised. Do not fear tiring us with your questions. Rather, remain in contact with us always. You will thus be stronger and happier. These communications between each individual and his or her familiar spirit are what make all individuals mediums. Mediums ignored today, but who will show themselves later, spreading out like an ocean without shores to sweep away disbelief and ignorance. People of learning, teach. People of talent, educate your brothers and sisters. Without knowing it, the work you accomplish is Christ's work, which God has imposed on you. Why has God granted you intelligence and knowledge if not to share them with your brothers and sisters, to enable them to progress on the path of joy and eternal blessedness? This was all a passage from St. Augustine of St. Louis. The doctrine of guardian angels watching over their wards in spite of the distance separating the worlds has nothing surprising about it. On the contrary, it is grand and sublime. On the earth, do we not often see a father, albeit far away, watch over his child and aid him or her with his wise counsels through correspondence? Why should we wonder that there are spirits who from one world to another are able to guide us from whom they are taken under their protection? Since them, the distance separating the two worlds is less than separating the con- continents on the earth. Do they not have the universal fluid that connects all worlds, uniting them in solidarity with one another, an immense vehicle for transmission of thought, as the air is for us the vehicle for the transmission of sound? 496. Can spirits who abandon their wards and no longer do them good, do them evil instead? Good spirits never do evil. They leave that to those who take their place, and then blame you, fate, for the misfortunes that overwhelm you, whereas you yourselves are actually to blame. 497. Can protector spirits leave their wards at the mercy of spirits who might harm them? There is unity among bad spirits for neutralizing the actions of good ones, but if wards would so desire, they could restore the link to their good spirit. The good spirit may find a more willing person somewhere else to help in the meantime while waiting for an opportunity to return to its ward. 498. When protector spirits allow their wards to be led astray in life, is it because they are powerless to confront malevolent spirits? It is not because they are powerless, but because they do not want to. Their wards emerge from their trials more evolved and more learned. Their protector spirits assist them with their counsels through the good thoughts they suggest, but which unfortunately are not always heeded. It is nothing but human weakness, carelessness, or pride that concedes power to the bad spirits. Their power over you comes solely from the fact that you do not offer them any resistance. Are protector spirits with their wards all the time? Are there circumstances where they may lose sight of them without abandoning them? Like, do they follow you in the bathroom? No. These are circumstances in which the presence of the protector spirit next to its ward is not necessary. 500. Does a time come in which a spirit no longer needs its guardian angel? Yes, when it reaches the level at which it can guide itself, just as the time comes in which the student no longer needs the master. But this does not happen on earth. 501. Why is the action of a spirit in our lives so secretive? When they are protecting us, why don't they do so openly? If you counted on their support all the time, you would not act by yourselves and your spirit would not progress. In order for it to advance, it needs experience, and experience must often be acquired at its own expense. It must exert its own volition, otherwise, it would be like a small child who is not allowed to walk by himself or herself. The action of the spirits who wish you well always occurs in such a way so as not to hamper your free will. For if you did not have any responsibility, you would not progress on the path that must lead you towards God. Since they do not see who is helping them, humans rely on their own efforts. Their guides watch over them nevertheless, and from time to time warn them of danger. 502. Do the protector spirits who succeed in leading their ward along the path of good experience any good for themselves? It is a merit that will be taken into account, whether for their advancement or their happiness. They feel happy when they see their efforts crowned with success. It is a triumph for them. And when a mentor exults at the success of his or her disciple, are they responsible for their if their efforts are unsuccessful? No, because they have done all they could. 503. Do protector spirits suffer when they see their wards following an immoral path in spite of their warning? And isn't it a cause of distress for them? They suffer from their wards' misdeeds and they pity them. But this affliction has none of the anguish of earthly parenthood because they know that there is a remedy for the wrongdoing and that what is not done today will be done tomorrow. Woo! Did you hear that? What is not done today will be done tomorrow. Y'all get it right. Get it right today because you're gonna get it right eventually. But you might as well get it right today, right? 504. Could we ever know the name of our protector spirit or guardian angel? Why do you want to know the names that do not exist for you? Do you believe there are only spirits with whom you are familiar? But how can we invoke our protector if we don't know its name? Give it any name that you please. That of a high order spirit for whom you have sympathy or veneration. Your protector will answer to that name, for all good spirits are kin and mutually assist each other. 505. Are protective spirits who employ well known names always those of the actual individuals who had those names? No. But they are spirits who are sympathetic to them and who often come at their orders. You require a name, therefore, they employ one that will inspire your trust. When you cannot personally carry out a mission, you send someone whom you trust and who acts in your name. 506. When we return to spirit life, will we recognize our protector spirit? Yes, because you frequently knew it before your incarnation. Do protector spirits all belong to the order of highly evolved spirits? Can they sometimes be found among average orders? Can a father, for example, be a protector spirit for their child? He can. But protection presupposes a certain degree of elevation, and additionally, a power of virtue granted by God. A father who protects his child may himself be assisted by a more evolved spirit. And this is why in espiritismo, right, when you work with espiritismo, you are working to help elevate your spirits, including your ancestors, because your ancestors are not already highly evolved spirits. They're people just like you and me. And so part of our job is to help elevate our ancestors so that they can one day reach a status in which they become protector spirits, right? So that is part of what it is that we do. And that just goes to show, right? 508. Can spirits who have left the earth under good circumstances always protect those whom they loved and who have survived them? Their power is more or less restricted. The position in which they find themselves does not always allow them full freedom of action. 509. Do humans in a primitive state or in a state of moral impurity also have protector spirits? If so, are these spirits of an order as elevated as those of more advanced humans? All individuals have a spirit who watches over them. All individuals have a spirit that watches over them. But such a mission is relative to its purpose. You do not give a professor of philosophy to a child who is just learning how to read. The progress of the familiar spirit follows that of the spirit it protects. Having a more highly evolved spirit who watches over you, you in turn may become the protector of a spirit who is less evolved than you. And the progress you help that spirit make will contribute to your own advancement. God does not require of a spirit more than what its nature and the degree of which it has arrived will allow. Hope y'all heard that. That was serious. 510. When a discarnate father who has been watching over his child reincarnates, does he still continue to do so? That is more of a difficult situation, but in a moment of freedom, he may ask that a sympathetic spirit assist him in this mission. However, spirits only accept missions they can carry out to the end. Incarnate spirits, especially on worlds where existence is quite material, are too dominated by their physical body to be able to devote themselves entirely to others, that is, to assist them personally. That is why those who are not sufficiently evolved are themselves assisted by spirits who are more evolved, so that if one fails, for whatever reason, it will be replaced by another. 511. Besides our besides our protector spirit, is a bad spirit connected to each one of us for the purpose of leading us into wrongdoing and for providing us an opportunity to struggle with good and evil? That's a great question. Connected is not the right term. It is certainly true that bad spirits try to draw individuals away from the moral road when they find the opportunity. However, when one of them connects itself to an individual, it does so of its own accord because it hopes to be listened to. This gives rise to a struggle between good and the bad spirit, and the one whose influence the individual has heeded will win. 512. May we have several protector spirits? All individuals always have sympathetic spirits who are more advanced or less so, who dedicate their affection to them and who take an interest in them. There are also those who help them in wrongdoing. 513. Do sympathetic spirits act in virtue of a mission? Sometimes they may have a temporary mission, but generally they are only attracted due to a similarity of thought and sentiment in good or evil. So it is correct to assume that sympathetic spirits may be either good or bad. Yes, humans will always encounter spirits who sympathize with them, whatever their character may be. 514. Are familiar spirits the same as sympathetic spirits or protector spirits? So I hope you guys are keeping up. So we have three kind of categories that he's talking about right now. We've got the familiar spirits, sympathetic spirits, and protector spirits, right? And he's asking, are they all the same? There are many, many gradations of protection and sympathy. Give to them whatever names you desire. The familiar spirit, however, is usually of a friend of the home. From the above explanation and from observations made about the nature of spirits who connect themselves to human beings, we may deduce the following. Protector spirits, guardian angels, and good spirits are those whose mission is to follow humans during life and to help them progress. They are always more highly evolved than their ward. Familiar spirits link themselves to a certain person by means of ties of varying duration in order to help them according to their power, which is frequently quite limited, however. So that can be more like ancestral. These are good spirits, but can sometimes little advanced and even a little frivolous. They voluntarily occupy themselves with the details of an individual's personal life and only act by order or with permission of protector spirits. Sympathetic spirits are those whom we attract to us through individual affections and a certain similarity in taste and sentiments, both good and evil. The duration of their relationship almost always depends on the circumstance. And bad spirits are imperfect or even wicked spirits who attach themselves to individuals for the purpose of diverting them from the good, but they behave at their own impulse and not in virtue of a mission. Their tenacity is directly related to how easily or difficult their access to the person is, and individuals are always free to listen to their voice or to repel them. 515. What should be thought of what should be thought of persons who seem to attach themselves to others in order to lead them inevitably into perdition, or, on the other hand, to guide them along the path of the good? Some persons exert a certain effect on others. They hold a kind of spell over them that seems irresistible. When this happens for ill, they are in fact bad spirits, whom other bad spirits employ in order to better subjugate their victims. God may permit this in order to test them. So he's talking about incarnate, like real people living on earth who, utilize their charm and their manipulation and their just all of those things that they can use to kind of get into other people's heads and cause them to do ill will. He's saying here that these are people that because of their nature have bad spirits with them that latch to them because of the similarities and feed them even more bad things to employ upon the living. So basically, these bad spirits are using living people to do the dirty work for them. So bad spirits don't necessarily have to be going around messing with people. They can just attach themselves to those who have similarities to them and then use those people to wreak havoc among other people. Hopefully that makes sense. Could our good spirit or bad one incarnate in order to follow us more directly in life? This does sometimes happen, but they frequently entrust this task to incarnate spirits who are sympathetic with them. 517. Are there spirits who attach themselves to entire families in order to protect them? Some spirits link themselves to the members of the same family, who live together and are united by affection. However, do not believe in spirit protectors of a race pride. Do not believe in spirit protectors of a race, right? Because it's not race-based. Spirit has no race, okay? 518. Since spirits are attracted to individuals out of sympathy, are they attracted to groups of individuals for particular reasons as well? Spirits prefer places where they can be amongst those who are like themselves. In such places, they can be more at ease and sure of being listened to. Humans attract spirits because of their tendencies, whether as individuals, as a collective group, a city, or a nation. Thus, there are societies, cities, and nations that are assisted by spirits of greater or lesser advancement, depending on their caricature and the passions that dominate them. Since imperfect spirits withdraw from those who repel them, the moral purity of a collective whole, like that of individuals, tends to repel bad spirits and attract good ones. The latter awaken and maintain a sense of the good in the masses in the same way that the former may inspire in them the worst passions. 519. Do groups of individuals such as societies, cities, and nations have their own special protector spirits? Yes. Because such groups are collective individuals, they are headed towards a common objective and therefore have the need of higher direction. 520. Are the protector spirits of groups of a more advanced nature than those who are linked to individuals? Everything is relative to the degree of advancement, whether of groups or of individuals. 521. May certain spirits help the arts to progress by watching over those involved in them? There are special protector spirits who assist with those who invoke them and whom they deem worthy. But what could you expect them to do for those whom deem themselves to be something, whereas in fact they are not? They cannot make the blind see or the deaf hear. So the ancients made special deities of spirits. The Muses were the allegorical personification of the protector spirits of the arts and sciences, just as the family protector spirits were designated by the names of the Lares or the Penates. Among moderns, the arts and the various industries, cities, and countries also have their own patrons or protectors who are high order spirits but under other names. Since all individuals have their own sympathetic spirit, it thus follows that in collective groups, the overall quality of the sympathetic spirits corresponds to the overall quality of the individuals composing them, and that foreign spirit are attracted to such groups out of the similarity of tastes and thoughts. In other words, these groups, as well as the individuals comprising it, are more favorably surrounded and assisted and influenced by protector spirits, or less so, according to the nature of the thoughts of the majority. Among nations, the causes that attract spirits are their customs, habits, their dominant character, and above all, their laws. For the character of a nation is reflected in its laws. Humans who ensure that justice reigns among them combat the influence of bad spirits. Wherever laws consecrate injustices that are contrary to humanity, good spirits are in the minority and a mass of bad ones flood in, keeping the people of the nation stuck in their ideas and paralyzing the occasional good influences which become lost in the crowd like isolated stalks of corn in a mist of weeds. By studying the customs of nations or of any group of individuals, it is therefore easy to get an idea of the invisible population that is meddling in their thoughts and actions. Woo, child! That makes you want to go and look at your country, your nation, and the laws that govern it. Are the laws in place for the highest good of everyone in that nation? Or is it just laws that favor the few? Is justice served to those who have been encountered with injustice, or are they not? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves. And if we can honestly look at our nation and at our country and say, no, there are still Black people being murdered by police, and there's no justice that's happening for that. There are still kids in cages, and there's still no justice happening for that. Our laws favor the top 1% billionaires and not for the rest of us. So no, we are not a nation of good spirits. And so it this book talks about how on a mass scale why bad spirits would tend to float in a situation like that, right? So these are questions you want to ask yourself, whatever part of the world that you're from, right? Okay, we're now on the subject of presentiments. 522. Is a presentiment always a warning from a particular spirit? I'm sorry, always a warning from a protector spirit? A presentiment can be the inner and secret counsel of a spirit who wishes you well. It can also be an intuition about a choice made prior to an incarnation. It is the voice of instinct. Before incarnating, a spirit has knowledge of the principal phases of its coming existence, i.e., the kind of trials in which it will be engaged. When these are of marked character, it preserves a type of impression in its inner consciousness, and this impression, the voice of instinct, awakens when the moment arrives. It then becomes a presentiment. 523. Presentiments and the voice of instinct are always somewhat vague. What should we do when we are uncertain? When in doubt, invoke your good spirit and pray to God, our supreme creator, to send you a divine messenger, one of us. 524. Do the warnings of our protector spirits have our moral conduct as their sole objective, or our conduct regarding the things of our private life as well? Everything. They seek to enable you to live in the best way possible, but you frequently shut your ears to their good warnings, and you thus make yourselves unhappy through your own fault. Our protector spirits help us with their counsels through the voice of consciousness, which they make resound in our inner being. However, since we do not always give them the importance they deserve, they offer us more direct counsels by using the persons around us. Examine the various happy or unhappy circumstances of your life, and you will see that on many occasions you received counsels which you did not always take advantage of, but which would have you save much trouble if you had just listened to them. We're now on the subject of the influence of spirits on the events of life. 525. Do spirits exert any influence on the events of life? Certainly, because they counsel you. Do they exert this influence in any other way besides the thoughts that they suggest? Like, do they act directly in the outcome of things? Yes, but they never act outside natural laws. Spirits never act outside of natural laws. You heard? It's important. See, this is why I tell y'all need to be scientifically literate. This is important, okay? We erroneously think that the action of spirit must always must only manifest through extraordinary phenomenon. We would like for them to come to our aid through miracles, and we always imagine them to be armed with some kind of magic wand. But this is not the case. Rather, their intervention always appears veiled, and what is, for example, accomplished through their concourse seems entirely natural. Thus, for example, they cause the meeting of two persons who seem to have met by accident. They inspire someone with the thought of passing by such and such a place. They call a person's attention to a specific point if it will lead to the result that they desire. Thus, they work in such a way that individuals, believing they have only followed their own impulses, always retain their free will. Right? 526. Since spirits can act upon matter, can they cause certain effects with the aim of producing a given outcome? Like, for example, a man's time is up. He climbs a ladder. The ladder breaks, and he dies from the fall. Did spirits cause the ladder to break so that the man's fate would be fulfilled? It is certainly true that spirits have an influence on matter, but they do so according to the laws of nature and not to derogate from them by causing an unexpected event at a given moment and contrary to such laws. In an example you have just mentioned, the ladder breaks because it is rotten or because it is not strong enough to support the man's weight. If it were the man's fate to die in this way, the spirits would inspire him with the thought of climbing the ladder, which would then break under the weight. Thus, his death would stem from a natural cause without the need for any kind of miracle or intervention. 527. Let us take another example, but one in which the natural state of matter does not intervene. A man is destined to die from lightning. He seeks refuge under a tree. Lightning strikes it and he dies. Did spirits cause the lightning and direct it at him? It's still the same thing. The lightning struck the tree at that particular moment because the event happened according to the laws of nature. The lightning was not directed at the tree because the man was under it, but rather he was given the inspiration to take refuge under the tree where lightning would strike. The tree would have been struck anyway, whether the man had been there or not. 528. An ill-intentioned man shoots another, but the bullet barely grazes him. Could a benevolent spirit have deflected the shot? If the individual was not meant to be struck, the benevolent spirit may have inspired him with the thought of moving out of its path, or it may have confounded his enemy in such a way as to make him miss. Once the bullet is on its way, however, it must follow the line of its trajectory. 529. What should be the thought about magic bullets that are referred to in certain legends and which fatally hit their mark? Pure imagination. Humans delight in humans delight in the extraordinary, but they are not content with the marvels of nature. Oh, this is so true. I don't even know how to freaking take this. This is so true. Everyone is always just looking for, these extraordinary phenomenon, these miracles, these things that are so just like otherworldly, when they don't realize that nature itself is so extraordinary and that nature itself has its own kinds of miracles that we just need to just pay attention to. Okay, sorry, let me go back. May the spirits who direct the events of life be thwarted by the spirits who have desires to the contrary. What God has willed must occur. If there is any delay or hindrance, it is divine will. 530. Mightn't frivolous and mocking spirits cause the little difficulties that undo our plans and upset our calculations? In other words, aren't they the authors of what we commonly call the petty troubles of human life? Like bad luck, for example. They do take pleasure in such annoyances, which are trials for you and are meant to try your patience, but they stop when they see that nothing comes of it. However, it would neither be just nor correct to blame them for all of your frustrations, of which you yourselves are the main authors through your own carelessness. Thus, if your dish breaks, it was probably due more to your clumsiness than the fault of a spirit. Say it again. You have no idea how many people I meet that are constantly like, "Oh, the broom fell. It's a bad spirit. Oh, this happened. It's a bad spirit. Oh, I had a string of bad luck. It's a bad spirit." Like, no. Like, you just a hot mess. Like, just it's okay. Do spirits who cause annoyances behave in such a manner as a result of personal animosity, or do they attack the first person whom they meet out of simple malice without any set motive? They act from both motives. Sometimes they are enemies who have made in this life or in a previous one, and who pursue you as a result. At other times, there is no motive. 531. Is the rancor of the people that have harmed us on earth extinguished with their corporal life? They often realize the injustice and the wrong that they have done, but if God allows them, they will continue to pursue you in their hatred in order to test you further. Is there a way to put an end to it? And if so, by what means? Yes, by praying for them and by paying back their evil with good. That way, they will end up comprehending their errors. In all cases, if you know how to place yourselves above their schemes, they will cease them upon you, seeing they have gained nothing from them. So, my mother always used to tell me, pray for your enemies, right? Pray for your enemies. The people who have done you wrong, the people who are out to get you, your haters, pray for them because they are suffering of their own inadequacies. And if you pray for them, you are helping elevate their spirit. And eventually they will come to understand their own wrongdoings. And they may apologize you or they may not, but that's not what you're there for. You're there to help elevate yourself and the people around you and the spirits who work with you. And praying pays a huge tribute to that. Experience has shown that certain spirits continue their vengeance from one existence to the next, and that sooner or later we will expiate the wrongs we may have caused someone. 532. Do spirits have the power to divert misfortunes from certain persons and to attract prosperity to them instead? Not entirely, because there are misfortunes that belong to the designs of providence. Nevertheless, they lessen your pain by giving you patience and resignation. And keep asking your questions, guys. I see you typing. Keep asking your questions. I'm going to get to them at the end, I promise. Also, be aware that it frequently depends on you yourselves to divert your misfortunes, or at least to mitigate them. God has given you intelligence so that you may use it, and it is especially in this way that spirits help you by suggesting favorable thoughts to you. But they only help those who know how to help themselves. Oh, my mother used to say this to me all the time. That is the meaning of the words. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. Moreover, what looks like misfortune to you is not always such in reality. Frequently, something good will result from it that is far better. But that is what you do not comprehend because you think only of the present moment or of your own selves. I am currently reading The Spirit Book by Allan Kardec, sweetie. That's what I'm reading, in case you guys are wondering. 533. Can spirits enable us to obtain the gifts of fortune if we ask them to do so? Sometimes, as a trial. Most often, however, they will refuse, just as you would refuse a child's inconsiderate request. Are they good spirits or bad ones who grant us such favors? Either. It depends on their intention. But usually they are spirits who desire to lead you into wrongdoing and who find an easy means of doing so in the pleasures that fortune provides. 534. When obstacles seem to fatally inflict our projects, is it because of the influence of some spirit? It is sometimes because of the influence of a spirit. Other times, and more frequently, it is because you yourselves have mismanaged your projects. Position and character have much to do with it, and if you persist in following a path that is not right for you, spirits have nothing to do with it. You yourselves become your own bad spirit. 535. When something fortunate happens to us, should we thank our protector spirits? Above all, thank God, without whose permission nothing takes place. Afterwards, thank your good spirits, who are God's agents. What would happen if we forget to thank them? The same thing that always happens. Wait, the same thing that always happens to ingrates. This spirit that he's interviewing right now is really sassy, and I'm so here for it. Like, I really am. Nevertheless, there are many people who neither pray nor give thanks, but for whom everything turns out well for them anyway. Yes, but it is necessary to see the end. They will pay dearly for this temporary, undeserved happiness. For the more they have received, the more they will have to render an account for. Wow. Wow. Okay, we are now on the subject of the action of spirits on the phenomenon of nature. 536. Are the great phenomena of nature, those considered as perturbations of the elements due to fortuitous causes, or do they all have providential purpose? Everything has a reason for being, and nothing occurs without God's permission. Do these phenomena always have humankind as their objective? Sometimes they occur for a reason directly related to humankind, but most frequently they have no other purpose than to reestablish the balance of harmony of the physical forces of nature. We understand perfectly well that God's will is the primary cause in these, as in all things. But since we know that spirits can, in fact, act upon matter and that they are agents of God's will, we would ask whether some among them might not exert an influence over the elements in order to rouse, calm, or direct them. But what is obvious, it cannot be otherwise. God does not act directly on nature, but has devoted agents on every degree of the world's scales. 537. The mythology of the ancients is entirely based on spiritist ideas, with the difference that they regarded spirits as deities, and they represented those gods or spirits as having special attributes. Thus, some were in charge of the wind, and others of lightning, while others presided over vegetation, etc. Is this belief entirely without foundation? It is well founded, yet it is still very far from the truth. Along the same lines, are there spirits inhabiting the Earth's interior, presiding over geological phenomena? Such spirits do not actually inhabit the Earth, but they preside over and direct its phenomenon according to their particular attributes. Someday you will have an explanation for all of these phenomena and you will comprehend them better. 538. Do the spirits who preside over the phenomenon of nature form a special category in the spirit world? Are they separate beings, or are they spirits who have been incarnated like us? Who will be or who have been? That's a really screwed up answer. I just want to make that clear. That was not an answer, but I'll just roll with it. Do these spirits belong to the higher or lower orders of the spirit hierarchy? That depends on whether their role is more material or intelligent. Some command, others execute. Those who perform material functions are always of a lower order among spirits, just as among human beings. 539. In the production of certain phenomenon, like storms, for example, does a single spirit act or do they gather in mass? They gather in enormous masses. 540. Do the spirits who act upon the phenomenon of nature do so with full awareness and in virtue of their free will, or out of an instinctive and unreasoning impulse? Some in one way, others in the other. Let us make a comparison. Consider the myriads of animals that little by little build up islands and in the ocean. Do you believe that there is no providential purpose in this, and that this transformation of the surface of the globe is not necessary for the overall harmony? Yet all this is accomplished by animals of the lowest degree while they are providing for their own needs and without perceiving that they are God's instruments. In the same way, the least advanced spirits are useful to the general whole. While preparing for life and before having full awareness of their acts and free will, They act upon certain phenomenon in which they are the unwitting agents. At first, they execute. Later, when their intelligence is more developed, they will command and direct the matters of that material world. Still later, they direct the things of the moral world. Hence, everything is useful. Everything in nature is linked together from the primitive atom to the archangel who also belongs as only an atom, an admirable law of harmony, which your limited minds cannot yet grasp in its entirety. We're now on the subject of spirits during battle. 541. During battle, are there spirits who assist in and who aid each of the forces in the fight? Yes, and who stimulate their courage. Thus, the ancients represented the gods as taking the side of this or that people. Such gods were nothing more than spirits represented by allegorical figures. 542. In war, justice is always one side only. How can spirits support the one that is in the wrong? You know perfectly well that there are spirits who seek only discord and destruction. For them, war is war. The justness of the cause means little to them. 543. Can certain spirits influence generals in the conception of their plans for a particular campaign? Absolutely. Spirits can influence them in this as in all conceptions. 544. Can bad spirits suggest faulty plans to them in order to lead them to defeat? Yes, but they don't have free will. If their judgment does not enable them to distinguish a good idea from a bad one, they will suffer the consequences and would do better at obeying than commanding. 555. Can generals sometimes be guided by a type of second sight, an intuitive perception that shows them the result of their strategies beforehand? That is frequently what happens with geniuses. It is what they call inspiration, and it enables them to act with a type of certainty. This inspiration comes to them from the spirits who guide them and whose use the faculties with which individuals have been endowed. 546. In the heat of combat, what happens to the spirits of those who die? Are they still interested in the battle after death? Some continue to be interested and others withdraw. The same thing happens in combat as occurs in all cases of violent death. At first, such spirits are surprised and even bewildered. They do not believe they are dead and they think they are still taking part in the action. It is only little by little that reality imposes itself upon them. 547. After death, do the spirits of those who have fought each other while still alive regard one another as enemies and continue to be hostile toward each other? In such moments, spirits are never calm. At first, they may still hate their enemies and even pursue them. But when they regain their composure, they see that their animosity no longer has any motive. Nevertheless, they may retain greater or lesser traces of it, depending on their character. Do they still hear the din of the battle? Yes, perfectly. 548. Do spirits who calmly watch a battle as spectators witness the separation of soul from body? And how does this phenomenon appear to them? Very few deaths are instantaneous. Most of the time, a spirit whose body has been mortally wounded is not aware of it at the time. Only when consciousness begins to return can the spirit be seen moving beside its corpse. This appears so natural that the sight of the dead body lying there does not produce any disagreeable effect. All life having been transferred into the spirit, only the spirit attracts attention, and it is the spirit with whom spectators converse or to whom they give orders. We are now on the subject of pacts, like having a pact with a spirit. 549. Is there any kind of truth to pacts being formed with bad spirits? No, there are no such pacts. However, a bad nature may be attuned to bad spirits. For example, you want to torment your neighbor, but you do not know how to proceed. Thus, you call low order spirits who, like you, desire only harm. In return for their help, they want you to help them in their own wrongful designs. However, this does not mean that your neighbor cannot be freed from them by an opposing appeal and by action of the will. Those who desire to commit a wrongful act simply for the sake of doing harm call bad spirits to their aid and then become obliged to serve them in turn because these spirits need them for the wrongful things they themselves desire to do. It is only in this that a pact consists. Woo! The fact that persons sometimes find themselves dependent on low order spirits proceeds from their delivering themselves over to the bad spirit thoughts that such spirits suggest to them, and not from any kind of stipulation made between them. A pact, in the unusual sense of the word, is an allegory that portrays a bad nature sympathizing with the equally bad spirit. 550. What is the meaning of the fantastic fables according to which certain individuals have sold their soul to Satan in exchange for certain favors? All fables contain a teaching and a moral. Your error is in taking them literally. This one is an allegory that may be explained like this. Those who call bad spirits to help them obtain the gifts of fortune or any other favor rebel against providence. They renounce the mission they have received and the trials they must undergo in this world, but they will reap the consequences of it in the life to come. This does not mean that their soul is condemned to suffer forever. However, instead of detaching themselves from matter, they immerse themselves deeper and deeper into it. And the joys they have preferred here on earth will no longer be available to them in the spirit world until they atone for their wrong through the new trials that will perhaps be even greater and more painful. Out of love for material pleasures, they place themselves under the power of impure spirits. Hence, they tactfully establish a mutual pact which leads them to ruin, but which will always be easy for them to break with the assistance of good spirits if they firmly desire to do so. So there's always hope. There's always a way out. Working with your good guides, working with God, working to elevate yourself can get you out of those situations. And of course, if you have a strong will. We are now on the subject of occult power, talismans, and sorcerers. 551. Can bad people, with the aid of bad spirits to whom they are devoted, cause harm to their neighbor? No, God would not permit it. 552. What is it to be thought of the belief that certain individuals can cast spells? Some persons possess a very strong magnetic power, which they may misuse if their own spirit is bad. In that case, other bad spirits might come to their aids, but do not believe in the fake magical power that exists only in the imagination of superstitious people who are ignorant of the true laws of nature. The events they cite are natural events poorly observed, and above all, poorly understood. 553. What may be the effect of formulas and practices with which certain persons claim to control the wills of spirits? That of making them look ridiculous if they are of good faith. If not, they are rogues who deserve punishment. All such formulas are mere charlatanism. There is no sacramental word, no Kabbalistic sign, no talisman that has any power over spirits, because they are only attracted by thought and not by material objects. We're gonna ruffle some feathers on that one. TikTok is about to lose their fucking mind on that one. Haven't certain spirits sometimes dictated Kabbalistic formulas? Yes. There are spirits who indicate signs and bizarre words, or who prescribe certain acts with the help of which you perform what you call spellcasting. Nevertheless, you may be very sure that these spirits are mocking you and abusing your credulity. 554. Isn't it possible that those who rightly or wrongly trust in what they call the virtue of a talisman may attract a spirit by such trust? It is their thought that acts, whereas the talisman is only a sign that helps to direct the thought? That is the case, but the nature of the spirit attracted by such means depends on the purity of the intention and the level of the sentiments. But it is rare for those who are simple enough to believe in the virtue of a talisman not to have a material objective rather than a moral one. Whatever the case may be, this implies a narrowness and weakness of mind that gives access to imperfect and mocking spirits. 555. What are sorcerers? When they are of good faith, those of whom you call sorcerers are persons who possess certain faculties such as magnetic power or second sight. Since they do things that you do not comprehend, you suppose them to be endowed with supernatural powers. Haven't you learned individuals often been mistaken for sorcerers in the eyes of the ignorant? Spiritism and magnetism give us the key to an infinite number of phenomena about which ignorance has woven many fables, and in which the facts have been greatly exaggerated by the imagination. A clear knowledge of these two sciences, which are actually but one, so to speak, showing the reality of things and their true cause, is the best protection against superstitious ideas, because it reveals what is possible and what is impossible, what is within the laws of nature and what is no more than foolish disbelief. 556. Do certain individuals really possess the gift of healing by simply touching? Their magnetic power may act to that extent when it is aided by purity of sentiments and an ardent desire to do good, for then good spirits come to their aid. It is necessary, however, to distrust the way stories are told by very gullible or enthusiastic individuals who are always ready to see the miraculous in the simplest and most natural of things. One must always distrust the self-interest claims of persons who exploit credulity for their own profit. And we are on our last subject and our last page, blessings and curses. Here we go. 557. Can blessings and curses attract good or evil to those at whom they are aimed? God does not listen to unjust curses, and those who utter them are guilty before God. Since we have two opposing tendencies, good and evil, they may be momentary influences in these cases, even upon matter. This influence never occurs, however, without God's permission and as an increase in the trial for the one at whom it is aimed. Besides, most frequently, curses are usually aimed at the wicked, while blessings are aimed at the morally upright. Blessings or curses can never divert providence from the path of justice. Providence does not strike those who are cursed unless they are wicked, and its protection covers only those who deserve it. All right, guys, that is it. Our next chapter we'll cover next week. It is called Occupations and Missions of the Spirit. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. So I'm going to now take your questions if you have any. And if you don't have any, obviously, thank you guys for hanging out. So I'm going to check TikTok first. Um, yeah, there's a lot of topics in this chapter for sure. Okay, let's see. Doesn't seem like there's much questions up there. With regards to the US, yeah, the subject where we talked about how nations as a whole can attract good or bad spirits by its entirety. Yeah, the US is definitely attracting some not so good ones for sure. All right, let's get to the YouTube comments and the Facebook comments. Hello, Madrina. Hi, Sammy. How are we all doing tonight? Hey, Joy Goddess. Hi, Kathy. Okay, Kathy. So Kathy got the definition. Do you remember that word that I was struggling with all last week? Somnambulism. Somnambulism. So the definition of it is sleepwalker or sleepwalking. So there we go. So go back and watch that other video and just replace it with the word sleepwalker. That hopefully should make more sense. Yeah, this book is an amazing share. And like I said, this book is not it's not word. It's not Bible. You know what I mean? Take what you want from it and leave the rest behind. Like this is the doctrine of spiritism, and this is the basis of what a lot of the mediums that you see online have their whole stuff on. But there are definitely things in here that are very, in my personal opinion, outdated, not quite right, that don't fit with the scheme of what's going on, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Same thing with Christians and the Bible. Like, take of it the parts that bring your spirit joy and the part that allows you and humanity to elevate, and put the rest aside. You know what I mean? Um, yes. So let's see what we got here. Witch talk. Little insects who wanted to hex the moon. Yeah, they really were. Do spirits have names among themselves, or do they carry their earth names over? So, according to the book, Pavrina, spirits do not have names among themselves. Um, they will answer to whatever names you call them. Now, those of deceased loved ones, obviously, because they were just living and now have just passed, it's easier to connect to them by using the name that they had when they were once alive. But overall, in a nutshell, overall, there's no real names for spirits that you can give them whatever name that you want. And if they give you a name, it's because they know that that name will resonate with you. Collective karma. Yeah, it's kind of like collective karma. Exactly. So this idea of, hey guys, oh my gosh, hello. It's kind of this idea that, you as a nation or as a city or as a town or as a country or whatever, it, you rise and you fall together. It's a collective consciousness that will attract either good or bad energies, good or bad spirits to you as a whole. And one of the ways that you can assess that is by the laws of your nation. And do those laws help people, or do they seek justice? Do they seek uh, good? And if not, then that's an issue. So if you seek it, so Madrina, if you're seeking guidance from spirits, you don't need to do that through anyone. You can do that entirely on your own if you want to. Um, my best advice when wanting to work with your spirit guides, with your helper spirits, with your protector spirits, with your deceased loved ones, with your ancestors that are good and who want to help you, the best way to do that is just simply to have a white candle. To have a white candle near you, keep the area in which you're going to do that clean. Um, a glass of water always helps as well, because water is a portal for spirits. It helps to bring them through. It's also a filter for spirits. It'll clean the spirits as they come through. Um, Water is also a form of communication. Spirits can speak to you through the water. So these are all ways, and also water helps with dreams. So if you have a white candle and a glass of water, like for example, near, like on your bedstand, on your nightstand near your bed, it will help you to communicate with your spirits in your dreams if you have that right next to your bed. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me see. What is the date for next week? Next week is February 14th, Valentine's Day. Okay. So let's meet up next Saturday. I'm sorry, next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to be in the city. I'm going to be doing work actually that weekend. Let's do. When can we do this? Let's do Thursday night. Thursday the 11th. Okay? Let's meet up Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same place, and we'll pick up our next chapter. Because from the 12th all the way through the 15th, I have a lot of spiritual work that I need to do. It's a very big ritual, a lot of situations involved, and I need to get myself prepared for that. So Thursday, February 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me. Have your notebook, your pen ready. If you haven't already obtained a copy of this book, do so, and then that way we can, read it together. And yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Have a beautiful night. I'm gonna say goodbye to TikTok, and now you guys. Bye.